listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome into the GM Shuffle. The GM Shuffle is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I am Geoff Schwartz, 8-year NFL vet, alongside, as usual, Marty Hurney, 30-plus years in NFL front offices, and we're here to preview all the games for this weekend. We'll start with a little bit of injury news. A lot of quarterbacks down this week. We'll talk about the impact that might have in preparation and game planning and sort of what teams do moving forward. Then we'll hit Thursday Night Football, and then we'll preview the main big games of the weekend. There's some ugly sides this week that we might discuss. Like, I might like the Titans to cover this weekend, Marty, against the 2-0 Colts. We'll talk about all of that. But as we approach this weekend, Marty, already a ton of quarterback injury news, and we'll go through these sort of one by one here. The biggest one, obviously, is that Joe Burrow is out for a long time. Jake Browning is in. Marty, what do you make of Jake Browning's success in this offense over the years? The offense is not as good without Joe Burrow, but it seems to be okay with Jake Browning.
Well, and I think that's the ideal way to approach the backup quarterback spot, Geoff, is continuity. He knows the offense. He's going to get better with it. You're not changing. You bring a guy in 1 year, put him in there, and then you pull him out. We're going to watch game this weekend with Carson Wentz starting for the Vikings, who was just signed, over a month ago. So I think continuity has a big deal to do with it. I do think the Bengals offensive line has to step up for the Cincinnati to be successful this week.
Yeah.
They didn't really look good last week. But yeah, I think, what Browning's got to do is not turn the ball over.
Well, he did last week, and they still won somehow. 3 turnovers and were able to win that game. You look, the Bengals offensive line has just not been something they prioritize. I mean, when your best interior offensive lineman right now is a guy you brought off of the street 3 weeks ago, probably not great, Marty. There's a reason why that player was not signed by anyone, and they continually just fail to develop that position. Maybe Mims will be good at some point. Maybe Rutledge will be good at some point, but it's not going to go well early on as they build those guys up. It's not Rutledge. That's the Lions left guard. I'm confusing guards here. Fairchild. I'm sorry. Fairchild is the left guard now for the Bengals. So you have, Orlando Brown's fine. You have a rookie. You have a below average center, a guard that's okay, and a right tackle is developing and continues to be a problem for them. But you have the weapons. So that allows you to get the ball in the hand of Chase, get the ball in the hand of Higgins, let them make plays, and hopefully you survive. You mentioned they're playing the Vikings without McCarthy for a couple of weeks here. And I'm not a Carson Wentz fan. I'll be honest, Marty. I don't think he's very good. What can the Vikings do with him to at least have a successful offense this week?
Get the ball out quick, I think, Geoff. I think one of the things, he was in Washington when I was there for a while. Nicest guy you ever want to meet. Good guy. There are questions about him in the locker room. No questions there. But I don't know whether he sees things real clearly. I think he's got to get the ball out quick. He tends to hold on to it too long. And as he gets older, the mobility, the escapability just gets less and less. So
yeah,
I'm with you. I do. I think that really Browning, the Bengals get the edge. Even with Burrow out, I would give the Bengals the edge of quarterback play tonight.
And the Vikings are without Aaron Jones, who's is on injured reserve now for at least, I think that's 4 weeks now is new injured reserve time. And he actually looked, he's looking his age a little bit. Jordan Mason was sort of getting not a bulk of the carries there, but obviously a little more production from him. And the other thing we talked about, I think this was on Monday now, Marty, is Ryan Kelly, the center. So if Ryan Kelly's not going to play, he's in concussion protocol, then you're down your center and your quarterback. I do like the defensive matchup for the Vikings against Jake Browning, but still, it does feel like the Bengals, even without Burrow, have a leg up in this game.
Yeah, we can talk about this later if you want, but I think not having your center there, and there are 3 or 4 instances this weekend that teams might be without the center. But then you add a new quarterback. Just how difficult is that for everybody else on the offensive line? Communication-wise?
Well, so the thing about a center obviously is they're in charge of setting a lot of the identifications for the middle linebacker, essentially, right? Like the middle point of the defense, and we work off of that. And a lot of times in the run game, it's on the quarterback. It's on the offensive line in the run game, right? We ID who we're going to. Now, there are plays that involve kills and checks and whatnot. The quarterback has to be involved in those, but we a lot of times set it, and then the quarterback can change it, of course. And in the pass game, the high functioning offenses, the quarterback's in charge of the mic identification. Now, we can do it to start, but they're allowed to change it. And a lot of times it works well when you have a veteran quarterback and a veteran center. They work together on that, right? It's not just a one-person process, and having that center to help you out a lot of times can be very beneficial. So now you have a backup quarterback in the game with Wentz and a backup center. So two guys that really haven't done the identification process together. It can be a little bit hectic getting out of the huddle, getting set up, and then obviously making sure you're called during time. And very quickly, the reason we ID a center point essentially on the defense is we have assignments of who we're supposed to block. And you need to know who those guys are. And the center sets up the first process of that. And why it's important in the pass game is that in the pass game, obviously you have your 5 blockers. You want to block the 5 most dangerous. But then the running back has to know who he has if he's in. The quarterback has to know who his hot guy or sight guy is. Then the wide receivers have to know who the hot guy is because they have to break off a route early. So all these things are in an offense. Most of the high-functioning ones, there are ones that are just set it and forget it, which I don't terribly like. That's the way it is. The Vikings, I think, are more set it and forget it. They're that Shanahan mold a little bit where you set it, you try to build in options no matter what happens. But now you have a backup quarterback in the game. Unfortunately, I've had situations, a lot of my career with backup quarterbacks. It becomes very simplified, right? And then defenses figure it out. So, how much can Carson Wentz handle with a backup center? If Ryan Kelly was in there, I'd feel more comfortable because Ryan can help him out with a lot of these things.
Me too. This is a game that I have no idea how it's going to play out. So
yeah,
I'm just going to see how it goes. But
yeah,
another quarterback thing change could be, we don't know yet. We don't know the status of Jayden Daniels yet for the Commanders. But in that case, Geoff, it's also almost more like a Bengals scenario where you have Marcus Mariota, who was there last year, who stepped in and played well in the games he played in last year.
Yeah.
And you tend to feel better about the Commanders in that situation. Again, I think it's all about continuity. If you need a backup quarterback to come in, Ted Marchibrough used to have a great line. You play a backup quarterback 6 games, real good ones win 3 for you, right? You go 500.
Yeah.
And I think that having continuity at the backup quarterback position gives you a better chance to hit that 500 mark.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because backup quarterbacks typically have a shelf life. And I remember I was talking, I one time in this conversation with Brian Scalabrine of all people, basketball, played for the Celtics forever. And he said that, look, man, he goes, I was great when I played 10 to 12 games. I could never be a starter. Like I was just great in that little stretch. I was never good enough to be a starter, but that in 10 to 12 games, like no one was really scouting me. I was able to do what I needed to do. And then eventually, of course, the more I played, the more people watched me, the more people scouted me, the less good I was. And that really applies to the quarterback position for backups, right? You come in, Marty, and you play 2 or 3 games and no one really has a game plan for you quite yet. And you make a couple of plays and there's no pressure, right? Because eventually you're going to give that job back. So you're playing pretty free, knowing that, hey, I got 2 weeks to play and I'm on the bench. Jake Browning has more pressure. He's got to play a little bit more than Mariota. And Mariota too, right? Number 1 pick in the draft, with number 2 pick in the draft, I should say. And he's played a lot of football. He's played winning football. And to have a guy like that come in is a big benefit for the Commanders. It's great that I think we're seeing teams put more emphasis now too on backup quarterbacks because the position gets hurt, and having a guy. And the great example last year is the Packers, right? Malik Willis comes in and wins 2 games for them when Jordan Love is out. That's a big buoy for your team. Marty, do you guys ever discuss in the front office competition? So you're playing the Raiders, who they won week 1. They didn't look terribly good in week 2. Short week now, flying across country to Washington. Do you look and say, you know what? If Daniels is 50-50, we can win with Mariota this week. Let's sit him. Is that a discussion you have in the front office?
It's a discussion, Geoff. I feel very strongly that if your starter can go, he should go. I mean, I don't think there's any game in the NFL that you can look at and say, oh boy, we got a walkover this weekend. There are no walkovers, right? There are none. So I think that's a kind of attitude that can get you beat. So really in the front office, you're almost reluctant to talk that way just because you don't want to put anything out there like that. It's really up to the doctors and Jayden Daniels right now, whether he can play or not. They've gotten Marcus Mariota ready. They have all the confidence in the world in him. But you're still playing a team that
Yeah.
went to New England and won on week one. And so yeah, I think if Daniels can play, I think you say play him.
Yeah. Another quarterback filling in this week, Tyrod Taylor, playing for the Jets for Justin Fields. I'm not sure this is much of a downgrade, Marty. You get a different offense with Taylor. You get a better passer than Fields right now too. So different offense. You're going on the road to play the Bucks. You're about a 7-point underdog. What do the Jets do offensively here? Do they just mix in more of the passing game with Taylor at quarterback now?
Yeah, and get him outside the pocket. Geoff, if you look at him in the past, and again, he's been in the league for a while, but he can come in and have some really good surprise games for you. This is a game I have marked. I think the Jets getting +7 could be a decent play here. I think, we've talked off air about coming in this week, there's 10 undefeated teams, I think. Last year, there's 9. It was 9 going into week 3, and after week 3, it went down to 5. So this week's there's 10. 2 games have both undefeated teams, but I think there's going to be at least 1 or 2 undefeated teams go down, and they're all favorites if you look at this, except for Cincinnati, who's getting 3 points. So I think this could be a much closer game than the spread indicates.
Yeah, week 3 is the number 1 week in the NFL where the favorite has the most losses. That's just like historically been the case, where it's not many more, but week 3 typically, again, you're 0-2, man. I've been there, you've been there. Like, you're clawing to win in week 3. Like, 0-3 is like, even just from momentum standpoint, right? It just kind of kills your momentum. You start 0-3. You get a win in the first 3 games, you start feeling good about yourself. So a lot of 0-2 teams, and we'll talk about these games when we preview them throughout the show, just clawing to get a victory. One of those teams is the Miami Dolphins, 0-2, playing the Buffalo Bills tonight on Thursday Night Football. We'll preview that game next on the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle. Geoff Schwartz, Marty Hurney. Let's talk a little Thursday Night Football here, Marty. It is the 0-2 Dolphins at the 2-0 Bills. And a couple things to note here. The number is 12.5 right now on DraftKings. The Bills are by 12.5. Total is 49.5. Just a couple notes here before we talk about the game. Marty, the Bills over the years have done many things well. One of them is, more often than not, when they're a big home favorite, they kick ass. They're very good in this spot. They've won games in the last couple of years, 28, 21, 34, 32. I mean, and some of these are non-division games, to be fair. Some of the division games tend to be a lot closer. But one thing the Bills have done over the years has played really well in this spot. And so just to make a note of that as we talk about this game moving forward, what are your thoughts, just kind of big picture on this game before we move into maybe some of the numbers?
Well, I'm with you, Geoff. I think that, you're always reluctant when something looks too good, but I don't see this game being close. I really don't. And Buffalo and Miami are definitely division rivals. And I think Buffalo gets up for it, maybe more than the Dolphins do. But I just don't see how the Dolphins stop the Bills from scoring. Now, the one thing that does bother me a little bit, Geoff, in giving the 12.5 is that even the first game this year, and if you go back to last year, the Bills have had a little bit of a tendency to start a bit slowly, especially at home. They can't do that when you're given 12.5. But I don't think that's going to be an option tonight. I do think Jalen Waddle for the Dolphins is questionable. So I think if he doesn't play, that definitely plays a factor into it. I just think that the Bills take control of this early and win by more than 12.5. And I hate giving 12.5. I hate giving the points in the division game, but I just think that I think they can run the ball. You saw James Cook last week. It really had his best game. And I think that, you're going to see more and more of that, him being a dominant factor in games along with Josh Allen, and that's going to make the Bills extremely tough. They're extremely tough at home. You're not going to bet against them at home. I have to go with the Bills tonight, and really that was one of my best bets of the weekend.
All right, Marty, let's talk about this game from the Dolphins' perspective, which I think is almost more interesting tonight than Buffalo, we know is good. Miami feels like they're spiraling pretty bad, right? They lose week 1, they lose week 2 in a game that was really just poorly managed at the end of the game. HN almost scores a touchdown to go ahead there at the end. There was a review process. Out of the review, Miami got a delay of game, which feels impossible. Then they got a false start. Like, this bad operationally. Their coach tried to say something that I've said a lot, which is basically you lose more games than you win. And it was an awkward comment. It was a very physical, hot game. You're on a short week. You're in the front office. You're the Dolphins front office. What is important for you in this game to evaluate the coach and players?
Well, I think during the week you can do that, Geoff, just as far as, gauging whether the confidence is just completely lost or whether it can be built on. And, things that happen like that last week, as you say, players know, players see it, right? That does not help their confidence level. Now you're going in to Buffalo. Now you do have, Buffalo without a couple key defensive guys. So I think you put it on your offense and say, we know we're going to have to score points this week to win. But if they get down early, it's just very hard. Now, sometimes it's easier playing on the road when you're not doing well because you don't have your home fans booing you when things go wrong. But I think it's just a really difficult spot to step into.
That's certainly fair.
I heard him boo.
But, I'm sure you have. I don't even remember. I remember being booed in the preseason once by Lions fans. I don't remember being booed in the regular season very often. I mean, Giants fans, I guess, did the fair share of booing, but that's because they're Giants fans, and those fans in the Northeast, Marty, a little bit tougher than a lot of parts of the country. But I don't think this is a respite for them. I mean, they're going to a team that right now is favored to be a Super Bowl champion, right? To one of the Super Bowl champions.
Right.
I mean, it's not like they're going on the road to somewhere else where it's an easier type of game. Buffalo plays really well at home, and you have the short week now, short window. Guys are beat up, right? We don't know if their center's going to play. We don't know if Waddle's going to play. And you're playing a Buffalo team that very clearly is rolling right now, right? They're playing very well. So Mike McDaniel, a lot of talk about his job security. It would be maybe an interesting time to fire him after this game. You have obviously the longer week to prepare for your fourth game of the year. The bye's not till late. Marty, how often do general managers and front office personnel look at schedule when firing a coach? But more importantly, do you look at who would take over, or do you just fire the coach if it's not working to figure out who on the staff is taking over after you make that decision?
Well, I think you definitely have to have a replacement in mind. But Geoff, the first thing I always asked when we were talking about this, and an owner will ask you as a general manager, should we make a change? If we're making a change after the third game, what were we doing in the offseason? Isn't that an indictment on me as a general manager not to see this? If we're saying all of a sudden after 3 games the roof's falling in, what were we doing in the offseason in those discussions? So I am very reluctant to change head coaches during the season now. It's been done more and more, and it's worked a couple times. But I just think that that's an indictment on the general manager, on ownership, on the front office. Why now are you making that change after 3 games when you had the entire offseason to make that move?
I mean, that's very fair. I hadn't thought about it like that, but certainly would be. And I don't think even Mike McDaniel was on. He was probably on some of a hot seat, but not a lot heading in the season. And it's just gone so poorly that it feels like if they lose tonight in a big way, it might be the end of him soon. I'm looking not tonight. Obviously, Tua's got to play well. Tua, look, his numbers were good in the game, but if his first read is not open, Marty, that's just the end. Like there's just no second and third read, and teams have figured that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think A-Chain's going to be a critical part of their game plan coming in. It does help that the Bills don't have Ed Oliver and Matt Milano It just seems like their whole defense plays better when Matt Milano's in there, although
Yeah.
their record, really, they win 2/3 of their games with him or without him, so over the years. So, but it still feels like they play much better when he's in there. Yeah, it's funny because these Thursday games, when you're not doing well, they have that added perspective of, okay, is there a
Yeah.
coaching change made? Because that's why you're talking about it, because you have the extra 4 days. I just don't. I was never one to do that, just because we made our evaluations in the offseason.
If you like what you're hearing on the GM Shuffle, there's even more at VSiN Pro. Betting splits, power ratings, and sharp analysis, all for just $9.99 your first month. Go to vsin.com/subscribe and check out all the subscription options. Marty, let's turn our attention to a divisional round rematch here between the Eagles and the Rams. This game is in Philadelphia again. There will not be snow. At least I haven't looked yet, but it's not time here for snow. Rams are getting 3.5. This number was 4.5, kind of bounced back down to 3.5 here. Marty, so just what concerns me so far about people talking about this game, feels like everyone's on the Rams. Sharps, pros, squares, fans. Look at what happened last season and think to ourselves, well, it's not snowing now. Only -2 in turnovers. We saw the Eagles, not get away with a win in Kansas City, but they didn't play their best game and won that game, right? We all acknowledge that. I would be hesitant to back the Rams here for all those reasons. But I will say, though, I liked the Rams before the season started as a team to get back to basically the divisional round or the conference championship game. I was off of them because Stafford was injured, but he looks good now. So I don't know if I should jump back on the Rams bandwagon, but I do think that the way the Eagles run the football, the way they ran the ball against the Rams last season, I do think the Eagles win and cover this game. It might be a little bit ugly at times, but I like them back at home this week.
Yeah, I like the Eagles to win. I just don't know. That 3.5 scares me a little bit. I think this is going to be a really good game, Geoff. I do. And listen, Sean McVay is going to come in and have his team ready. He had this game circled in week 3. He knew that this was going to be a big game for his team. And I just think that the Rams come in and play well. I probably haven't given them as much credit as they deserve the first couple of weeks, but I think they make this a very close game. I think they have a chance to go into Philadelphia and steal this game. So if I'm not going to play this game, but if I was, I think I'd take the points with the Rams.
Is there something the Rams do specifically you think that they could take advantage of? I think that obviously the ability to have your 2 wide receivers take advantage of basically the second corner for Philly is something the Chiefs just couldn't do. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, who looked great last week, feels like that's the path for the Rams, right? Is that you basically throw the ball on the Eagles.
And Sean McVay's watching that week 1 game and seeing, they have some legitimate questions in the secondary. So, yeah, the Rams are going to come out throwing the ball. I think they're going to score points. And I think this is going to be a relatively high-scoring game. And it really could come down to the team with the ball last.
Yeah, the total for this game, I want to make sure I have the right number currently right now, because you're right. It could end up being a little high scoring. Weather should be good this weekend. Obviously, something to note when it comes to all these games. This was only 44.5, so not the highest of the weekend. Maybe a little bit there. I'll tell you what, man. AJ Brown just really hasn't got going yet. He got the ball a ton against Kansas City, but didn't get a ton of receiving yards. Those numbers not up yet because I think there's just some curiosity about what they're going to do. But I'm curious with AJ Brown. He's due for the breakout game, Marty. Maybe this Rams defense is not the one to do it against, but they haven't hit that deep shot yet with him. We know Devontae Smith, the way they use him, sort of intermediate and short. But I think Brown is sort of due for that. If you're looking to back Brown this game, would surprise me if he had a good one against the Rams.
Yeah, he's not going to stay quiet for much longer. So, and the Eagles have so many weapons that it's just going to come back to, what is working in that game. And if A.J. Brown doesn't have a great game this time, or they don't go to him a lot, it means that they're going to somebody else. So, but you're right, Geoff. He's ready to break through and have that A.J. Brown type of game.
So just a reminder, last year after week 2, there were 9 undefeated teams and 4 of them lost in week 3. So week 3 is a week. Now these 2 teams are obviously 2-0, but worth noting throughout as we talk about some of these 2-0 teams moving forward. We'll get into the bulk of the previews. We'll do that next. We'll start with Chargers and Broncos, an AFC West matchup on the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Back on the GM Shuffle, Geoff Schwartz, Marty, Hurney will start going over our favorite games of the week, and there are some ugly sides. We'll talk about those. Then in D block, so in about 20 minutes, stay tuned. We'll get you our best bets of the weekend as we have another weekend full of all the NFL action. No buys yet, Marty. So we have 16 games to talk about. Let's start with a divisional matchup here between the Chargers and the Broncos. This game is in Los Angeles. I don't really consider it home field advantage for the Chargers, but they're favored by 2.5 here, total 45.5. I'll tell you what, Marty, I like the Broncos in this game. I think there's a great opportunity here to sort of back the Broncos after that really ugly loss this weekend to the Colts. The Chargers are really riding high right now. This is sort of the opportunity in week 3. We see a lot with these 2-0 teams where you're riding high. Broncos off a really, the game they should have won, honestly. They didn't. Bad penalty. It happens in the National Football League. Everyone's on the Chargers. Here come the Broncos. I think the Broncos, with the way they're able to move the ball offensively, their defense hasn't played as well. I do think the Broncos here plus 2.5 would be a way to look at this game.
Yeah, I'd like it the other way, Geoff. And again, it's hard, and especially I'm very reluctant giving points in divisional games like this. But the Chargers are on a roll. And if you look at it, okay, the way I looked at this week was there's 10 undefeated teams. Well, 4 of them are in 2 games against each other. So now you've got 6. And to me, I just went down sort of like you do in horse racing. You pick the legitimate favorites and you say, okay, who are the undefeated teams, the 6 undefeated teams that aren't playing each other? Who are the best bets in those games? I think it's just to win, not the spread, just to win. I think it's the Bills and the Chargers. And I think that Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman, those guys, there's no letdown here. And they're playing at home. They have the better quarterback. They have a win because quarterback against a win with quarterback. I just think 2.5, little scary because I thought it would be over 3, but I think that the Chargers definitely win the game and I think cover the 2.5.
So Justin Herbert has been awesome so far this season, Marty. And I think what's really been impressive about Herbert is the Chargers have basically taken all the shackles off of his game. And I'm not saying that they ever had him on, but very clearly, and Jim Harbaugh has talked about this at various times this offseason to training camp, is that this offense went from maybe not protecting Herbert, but saying, Herbert, you're the guy now. And we knew he could make all the throws, but it does feel like watching them play, there's a confidence factor, Marty, in his game that we have not seen before. There's, using him, not using him, but allowing him, I think, the freedom to move a little bit more in the pocket, make more plays with his legs, get himself, buy him some more time. And they're just doing a really good job also of scheming up some open looks for him, some easy throws. Look, his wide receivers are fine. They're not great. So having the ability to get them open via scheme is really important to the success so far of this team. They started that game the other night against the Raiders with 7 straight passes. And really, I think they threw like 9 of the first 10 plays. Now, Herbert did run in one of those, but the idea is that they're not basing their attack anymore off the run game, Marty, and that unlocks a different Justin Herbert and a different Chargers team.
Sure it does, Geoff, and it opens up the run game. And one of these weeks, they're just going to run the ball for about 150 and win the game with their offense running the ball. I mean, there's a lot of weapons here, and I think one of the key parts of the passing game's been Quentin Johnson. I'll be honest, him coming out, I had some questions on him, but he has really played well the first 2 games and has made big plays for him each of the first 2 weeks. I think he's going to really end up being a very good player and having a real good season. That can just beat you so many different ways. You have the Chargers. I think that they are, after the Bills and the Ravens, I think they're the 3rd best team in the AFC right now.
Well, Marty, he catches the football. That's an important part of playing that position. He's doing that much better this season than he did last year. And I think last in the Chargers here, the passing game this year, I think, has done a good job of putting the players in the positions they're best in, right? So Quentin Johnson is going deep, man. Like you're big, you run fast, go deep. We're not going to task you with running short intermediate routes and trust you to catch the ball in traffic. Go deep. Lad McConkey, you're our guy, sort of middle of the field, intermediate. Like they're doing a really good job, Marty, I think, of putting those guys in roles for success. So something to note here. I still like the Broncos cover this game, just a spot. I'm not sure they win, but just to cover this game, the 2.5. Let's get to
Jeff, let me ask you one quick question on that game,
yeah.
okay? As a player, and I'm real big on confidence and momentum in this league, okay?
Yeah.
So you're Denver. You thought you won the game. You end up losing it, right? So you're actually celebrating because you thought you won the game. You end up losing it. Now, it's not a example of mismanagement. I mean, there was no mismanagement in the deal, but how much does that make it hard to rebound quickly and get ready for a game the next week?
I think it depends on basically how veteran your team is. And Sean Payton, the coach that he is, I think pretty much will have them, kind of let this go pretty quickly. Look, part of the league is learning how to process wins and losses, and you never get too high, never get too low, right? You that Sunday night is basically the time. You watch film Monday, and then by Monday, that's it. Like you're moving on. And so, they have some young players at young positions, but for the most part, I think the team has enough veteran guides to understand that's the way it is. And again, like the game is Sunday, right? You lose. By Wednesday, you're into Chargers. Right now, of course, you're into Chargers by Monday, but for players by that Wednesday practice, you can't think about what happened last week, And it could be used as motivation too, Marty, right? Like, guys, I say this all the time, okay? Do not play the game to let the referees decide the game for you, right? That I know people want to complain about the officials, and certainly fair there were some calls last week I didn't agree with, but if Denver's not in a situation where they need a field goal to win the game, the other way around, the Colts need a field goal to win the game. You're up 7, you're up 8, you're up 10. A leverage call doesn't matter for you, right, Marty? So, like, I think even the Jaguars game, I didn't think that was a pass interference on Travis Hunter. But if Brian Thomas catches the football on 4th and 5, they're up 10. Doesn't matter, right, Marty? So, like, to me as a player, I've always been in the situation, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, you control in the end your destiny, and don't put the game in the hands of the official. I'm sure Sean Payne shared that same message with the team this week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's this just a tough spot for them to. I don't think they played as well. I was hoping they were going to play well, better than they did in week 1, and then last week. This will be an interesting game.
Yeah, it will be. Let's get to another interesting game. I want to talk about the schematics here of the Chiefs at the Giants. This is Sunday Night Football now. The Giants are getting 6 points here. Total is what's the total at right now? Current total right now 45.5. I like the under in this game quite a bit here. But Marty, I want to talk just Chiefs for a second. Okay, there's a lot of talk this week about their schematics. Okay, if you follow me on social media long enough at Geoff Schwartz, they're my team. You know that I watch every snap of theirs now since my brother got there in 2016. I root for the Chiefs. I like the coaching staff. But let's start here, Marty. There's some staleness in the offense. Now, I want to hold off a little bit of judgment until they get Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy back. Because, look, you take Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown off the Chiefs, off the Eagles, it's a different team. Right? You take Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams off the Rams, different team. But the staleness to me shows up a lot in the run game. When I think the run game design for years, it's poor. It's shotgun, it's RPO with a quarterback that doesn't ever keep the ball. It's just not a well-designed run plan. Andy Reid said this week they're comfortable and Mahomes likes going from under center. I don't know why they haven't done it yet, but I think there's legitimate concerns about just schematically. Look, when you're passing the ball the way the Chiefs want to, the run game is less important, right? It doesn't matter that you don't have breakaway backs or that your guys don't break tackles. But now the pass game's not there. You need something to supplement that, and the run game's not there either. And so I'm curious about in this game, do they get back to basically old school West Coast football runs, under center, the zones, the inside zone, the outside zone, some of the duo stuff? That's what I'm curious to see in this game, Marty.
But Jeff, if you're not throwing the ball well, I mean, I could argue that in the past years, the passing game has opened up the running game, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they've
in
never
their
had
offense,
they've
yes.
never had what you would call a dominant running game in my mind, but it has worked because they had the weapons on offense to,
Right.
move the ball and really make the defense concentrate on stopping the pass. They're not doing that this year because he doesn't have enough weapons. So I just think that, I like the Giants in this spot getting 6 just
Yeah.
because I don't think that you can continuously win in this league. He had so many weapons last year. Even Travis Kelce, was playing better. Maybe not last year, the year
Yeah.
before, but if you look at him this year, Jeff, they really don't have a lot right now that scares you in the
No.
passing game. And to me, that's what makes the running game so good is when
Yeah.
you can throw the ball.
Yeah. Last thing here with the Chiefs, Marty. So Andy Reid has guys on staff that he has known forever, right? You look at the O-line coach has been there his entire time. The tight end coach has been there his entire time. Spags has been there now for a while. Matt Nagy's been there for a while in between his stint as a head coach. Like they're all sort of guys that he trusts and knows. Can you get stale schematically when you have the same people in the same positions for so many years? Like, would it be necessary in the offseason for him to go find a consultant, an analyst, like something a little bit different? Or is that something that you don't really worry about with a senior staff like that?
Well, I think you can always get stale. I believe this league is cyclical in every position that is in the front office or on the coaching staff. I think you have to constantly look how to change and get better. That said, it's one of the hardest things for head coaches to do, especially when you've had the success that the Chiefs have had. It's hard to go in and make changes on your coaching staff. But yes, I mean, this is a cyclical league
Yeah.
and things change. And I just think that, we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. I just think that the tides kind of change in the AFC,
Yeah.
and it's going to be interesting to see. I think the Giants have a small chance to win this game. Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm. The Giants are interesting here because Chiefs defense is fine. Could Russell Wilson throw as many moon balls as he did against the Cowboys? They had a big, obviously, offensive output. Can you trust that again in this week? I just don't know about that. But what I do know is we're going to cover some more games there. We're going to get to some of those ugly games. I have some plays I like in those. We'll do that next on GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Back on the GM Shuffle as we get to all the games here, Marty. Let's start kind of rapid firing through some of these here. Falcons at the Panthers. Panthers are getting 5.5 for a total of 43.5. It's ugly, Marty, but I have to take the Panthers here getting the points in this game. I don't feel great about it, but they looked a little bit better than that Cardinals game. And right now, the Falcons are sky high. You beat the Vikings on national TV. Your defense looks much better, and you're going to play a Panthers team that's missing 2 offensive linemen, which does worry me. The Panthers do have suitable backups, which is nice, in that spot, Marty. But I still think here that I would lean Chiefs here. Panthers here plus 5.5. Just playing a number here, divisional opponent. Panthers desperate 0-2.
Yeah, I went back and forth in this game whether to lay the 5.5 with the Falcons or not. I decided to stay off because it does worry you doing that, especially on the road in the division game. But boy, if Travis Etienne ran for 143 yards 2 weeks ago against Panthers, what's Bijan Robinson going to do? I think the Falcons are a really up-and-coming team, Jeff. And I check myself. I try to ask, okay, they are built the way that I was always taught to build a team, and that is draft, re-sign, and develop, right? That's what they have done, and they've had some tremendous drafts. I don't think they've gotten enough credit for the drafts over the last 5 years. You look at the difference makers they have drafted on offense, and now, as you said, their defense is playing really good. So if I had to take anybody, I would take the Falcons in this game, but I'm going to pass on the game.
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, I think for me, I'm always looking at divisional underdogs. Like, I would love to take the Panthers, but the offensive line stuff really does concern me. So, Marty, I think I'd stay away a little bit from this game here. Next one up here that I am on the Tennessee Titans plus 4.5, Marty. The Colts coming to town against Tennessee, 2-0 Indianapolis. Couldn't be better right now. Tennessee Titans played the Rams close till the very end there. A couple of late scores, but the Rams pushed that game over. You remember they played the Broncos tough in week 1 as well. Cam Ward has the goods, man. He's looking really good, Marty, here. This is just a situational spot for me. 2-0 Colts riding high. This number, by the way, is not 4.5 if they don't beat the Broncos. So I like Tennessee here getting 4.5. It's a hold your nose game, Marty. Hold your nose and bet it. And it's going to be ugly, but I'll take Tennessee here.
I like the pick, Jeff, and I was going to be on it, but then when I just looked at as far as Tennessee has given up 300 some yards rushing over the first 2 games. Now you got Jonathan Taylor coming in. You got Daniel Jones playing well. I do. If I had to pick a side, I'd like the Titans as well. They can't keep dropping balls on Cam Ward, Jeff. Man, Calvin Ridley's dropped every time I turn on. Maybe I just catch him at a bad time, but they have dropped a lot of passes on Cam Ward. He really had shown some bright spots and some things to make you think he's going to be a really good quarterback. If I had to take a side here, I would definitely take Tennessee. I like your thought process, but I would just stay away right now.
One game that really fascinates me, Marty, is the Cowboys at the Bears. I think you would be surprised at this number. The Cowboys are favored by 1.5 here in Chicago. The total is 50.5, partly because the Cowboys score a bunch of points and they give up a bunch of points. 24 points to Philly before that rain delay and 37 to the Giants. They made Russell Wilson look like the 2015 version of himself. And the Bears, look, I know they got blown out and embarrassed. I really like Ben Johnson, by the way, this week said, we don't have the practice habits of a championship team. I thought it was very important to make that point publicly to basically shame his players, which again, shame works, okay? It works into now. You don't want to always do that, Marty, but players see that, they get the message, and they're going to be asked about that all day by reporters in open locker room today. Hey man, Coach Johnson said you're in it's a way to push the team. Caleb Williams has got, I think, incrementally better last week. I know it was a bad game. I get it, but there were a little bit of things I had liked about Caleb Williams. This number being so low makes me feel like the Bears are the play here.
I hear you. I'm the same way. I mean, I said if I stick to what I said before the season, I would bet against the Bears early until Caleb Williams gets familiar with Ben Johnson's system. I was all ready to go on Dallas. At 1.5 scares you, Jeff. It really does. It's I don't know why it wouldn't be higher, but that's the only reason I wouldn't play this game. I still like Dallas in this spot.
One game that I have played myself, and as we get to our best bets here soon, I'll put down here is that. Oh no, it's not my best bets, but I'll tell you what game I have played so far. I took New England plus the 1.5 hosting Pittsburgh Steelers for a couple reasons, Marty. One is that whenever Mike Tomlin's a road dog, it's a great time to be a road favorite. It's a great time to take him. He's terrible in this spot. But the Steelers defense has been atrocious. It has been flat out awful. 32 points to the Jets, 31 to the Seahawks. The run defense, they're getting blown off the ball, man. Seattle's offensive line, which isn't great, but they like their young pieces, especially at guard and tackle, blowing Pittsburgh off the ball. These huge holes are opening up. And New England's offensive line is not great, but they ran the ball well against Miami, who also stinks on defense. I like the two-headed back combination of Stevenson and Henderson. Getting that first win probably felt good for them in that game. It was an ugly game. They scored special teams. They played well on defense at the end. So to me here, I like the Patriots. Drake May is getting more comfortable, playing a little bit better. Steelers to me just aren't very good. So I like the Patriots here getting the 1.5.
It's going to be a very physical game, right? I mean, Mike Tomlin, Mike Vrabel teams, it's going to be a very physical game. If I liked anything, and I didn't do anything here, but that total of 44.5, I think you would go under if you did anything. But this game's going to be, I think, a very physical, low-scoring game.
Yeah, I would be wouldn't be surprised there. Marty, Packers at the Browns. Browns plus 8.5 here. I think the storyline for me in this one is how much longer is this Flacco thing going to last?
Yeah.
Now the game last week against the Ravens, total yards discrepancy, I think the Browns actually had more yards on offense, but the mistakes are killing them. But we knew the Flacco thing, this was going to happen. He didn't play well last season. this was always going to end up this way. I'm not sure they want to play Dylan Gabriel and Sanders as early as this week or next week, but how much longer is this going to go? If the Packers get up 14-0 early or 21-10, like, is Flacco going to make it past this game as their starter?
Well, let's go back to the offseason, Jeff. Really, whether it's Flacco or Gabriel or Shador, do you feel good about any of them? Do you feel good about the Browns with either starting? I mean, they just, Joe Flacco at this point is a very good backup in his career.
Yeah.
But I think that's what he is. Dylan Gabriel and Shador Sanders, we don't know whether they're starters in this league. They're certainly not ready to be right now. So yeah. I just, I think the Packers have the opportunity to come in, and if it weren't for the Cleveland defense, I would be playing the Packers this game. I just think they scare me a little bit as far as being able to the Packers being able to score enough points to cover the 8.5. Yeah. But I just think the Browns are a team that, offensively, they're just going to struggle scoring points all year.
They are. The Niners host the Cardinals. Niners are a 2.5-point favorite. Totals 45.5. This ticked from 1.5 up to 2.5 with the news that Brock Purdy might play in this game. Marty, I like Kyler Murray to go over his rushing prop. It's starting to pop up here as we record this on Thursday. It's 27.5 at some shops. Just make sure to find the best number on DraftKings. And he has played well against the Niners, and he runs the ball well against the Niners because Niners their war on defense for years has been stopping a running quarterback. I don't know about a number in this one, but I like Kyler Murray. Like, that's my plans, over rushing yards.
Yeah, I looked at this game as far as the undefeated teams and saying, okay, which team's going to come out at 3-0? I can't say that with conviction right now. If I had to pick a side, I think I'd probably take possible upset with the Cardinals. But Kyle Shanahan scares me to death. I can never bet against him because he's going to come out. They're going to be ready, Jeff, and they're going to have a great game plan. So this will be a fun game to watch, though.
It will be. Very quickly, Marty, here. We'll talk on Monday about the Ravens-Lions, but do you have a first thought on this game as we get to maybe the best game of the weekend will be on Monday?
Yeah, I think that the Ravens are just too – I don't know whether I'll be able to bet against the Ravens the rest of the year until it gets to the playoffs, and they may have to go to the Buffalo. I just think the Ravens are so good this year. The Lions came off a great win, but who was it against? It was against the Bears. So, listen, Lions are still a well-coached team, very good team, but I don't think they're the team they were last year. I like the Ravens here.
Let's get to our best bets now. A game I've held off on until talking about now is Houston at Jacksonville. Houston's getting 1.5 here. I know Houston has not started the way they wanted to, Marty. They're 0-2 here. But I like them to win this game and bounce back here. Again, they're sort of clawing for their lives. They played the Rams and they played the Bucs, who had a great comeback there on Monday night. Houston needs this game, or that might be it. If the Colts win and go to 3-0 and you're 0-3, you're done. You are not winning the division. If you have 3 games back, no matter how good or bad you think the Colts are going to be, they played a little bit better offensively against Tampa Bay. Jacksonville is just not as good as the 2 teams they played so far. So maybe there's a little bit of a respite here. So I like Houston here plus the 1.5 as we talk on Thursday morning. I mentioned the Titans plus the 4.5, Denver plus 2.5. I like New England here plus the 1.5. Marty, any last best bets for you before we head into the weekend of watching?
I like Seattle. It went down to 7 this morning.
Still at 7.
New Orleans going in with Spencer Rattler. I just think the Seahawks coming off a really good win. I think that they're going to win that game pretty handily. And then I like the Jets at +6. I mean, if there was any other symbol on the helmets this week than Kansas City's, would the Giants really be getting 6 points? I think that the way they both played the first 2 weeks, I got to take the point. So it's Seattle -7, Giants +6.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The Giants, I mean, that means that they're saying the Chiefs are favored by 8 on neutral field against the Giants right now. That feels like a little bit much the way the Chiefs are playing. As always, GM Shuffle drops on Mondays and Thursdays. If you like the show, if you're listening this long, please leave us a rating, a review. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Those are very important to us. So please do that if you've been here this long. Share around as well. We'll be back on Monday, cover everything we saw this weekend, plus to preview that big game between the Ravens and Lions. Marty Hurney, I'm Geoff Schwartz. This is the GM Shuffle. Enjoy your weekend of watching ball, everybody.